Trip made it hit, boy.
All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God Yahweh. I do so in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. And today we're going to get into proving who the biblical Edomites are. It says in Genesis chapter 25, verse 25, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau, right? So the so-called white man is depicted to have a complexion that's red, right? In particular, like a hairy garment in context. So in the Hebrew, there are various colors pertaining to the color red, but in specific, it's talking about this type of red, like in hairy garment, right? So this is Exodus 36 and 19, and it says that he made a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skin above that. This is Exodus chapter 36 and 19, and he made a covering for the tent of ram skins dyed red, and a covering of badger skin above that. So this, in context of what Genesis was talking about, that hairy garment, it was talking about this type of garment, this type of red. And they got this type of red, this red dye from a certain beetle. Watch this. This is called the Kermes vermilio, right? It says with waxy covering and no limbs, female scale insects known as the Kermes vermilio are small parasites that attach themselves to oak plants to feed on sap. Native to the Mediterranean, the critters also produce a red dye that has been used since antiquity, the oldest example of which was recently found in a tiny woven text. So our forefathers used to dye garments red using this specific beetle. And right above it is the source where you can find this about this article. And here's what they were talking about: that red textile, and this is the complexion of that child. Now I know there's a lot of people who think that Esau is the Arabs. Uh, Esau lay with multiple other colored nations. So how did they end up being white? I'm going to explain that. Right. This is Second Kings chapter 5 verse 27. It says, "The leprosy thereof of Naaman shall cleave unto thee and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his place a leper as white as snow." So the Most High can plague an entire generation, an entire bloodline with leprosy. This is something that the Most High can do. And this is something that he did with the children of Edom. The first thing that the Edomite tried to do is to darken up his complexion, but he couldn't because the Lord cursed him. Then Esau went unto Ishmael and took unto the wives which he had Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife, right? So Esau went into the brown and dark complexion Ishmaelites to try to darken up his complexion. In Genesis 36 and 2, right? It says Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Abba, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Aharberma, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zebron, the Hevite. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the persons of his house and his cattle and all his beasts and all his substance which he had got in the land of Canaan, and went into the country from the face of his brother Jacob. Right. So Esau always was trying to darken up his complexion and assimilate into other cultures because he doesn't have really a. This is Genesis chapter 27 and 41. And it says, "And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob." Now we know that, according to the history of it, Esau never got a chance to kill his brother Jacob, but his children did, and we're gonna prove that. So-called King Leopold II of Belgium created the Congo Free State as his private freedom a business venture during Europe's scramble for African territory. The Belgian government seized the state from Leopold after public revelations of his brutal and ruthless exploitation of the Congolese people. In 22 years, an estimated 10 million Congolese, half the population, were forced into labor and were murdered or died from disease or starvation. So this is Esau living out, a part of Esau living out what he said in his heart through his children, killing the children of. In 1879, Leopold hired the British American explorer Henry Morton Stanley to survey the Congo River area and to build a road, establish posts along the navigable river, and make treaties with Congolese chiefs along the way. The survey was made under the guise of the International Association of the Congo, a private holding company distinguished as an international scientific and philanthropic association headed by Leopold. Ostensibly, the IAC was devoted to free trade and elimination of the slave trade. At the 14 Nation Berlin Conference of 1884 through 1885, however, Leopold used skillful and cunning diplomacy to play the major powers against each other to get de facto recognition of his claim to the Congo River Basin. Leopold changed the name of the IAC to Congo Free State and became the absolute ruler of an area larger than Western Europe and 80 times the size of Belgium. So this the decrepit beast, this animal killed millions of our people in the Congo, right? Which were Israelites of various tribes, Benjamin, Judah, and Levi, and some of the scattered tribes. He killed them, millions. Leopold quickly abandoned the pretense of a free trade zone and instead controlled the country through private trusts. He declared that any uncultivated land was vacant and available for exploitation. He authorized forced labor for the Congolese population on behalf of his economic, primarily the collection of rubber and ivory. Congolese who refused to provide labor, rubber, and ivory, or who did not meet the assigned quotas, were beaten and mutilated, and amputating hands was a common practice. Their wives and their children were kidnapped, women were raped, their villages were burned, and many of the uncooperative were executed. In the 22 years the CFS existed, an estimate 10 million Congolese, half the population, lost their lives to murder, starvation, and disease. So this is what the so-called Edomite does. He rapes, robs, and murders all throughout the annals of time. This is something that he consistently does, and this is exactly what he said he was going to do: kill Jacob. That was his sole mission, to kill the Edomite. That was his sole mission, to kill the Israelites. This is the massacre of Chula. Was an attack carried out by the military forces of the Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortez on his way to the city of Mexico, Tenochtitlan, in 1519. Francisco Lopez de Goroma indicates that the massacre of Chula began after Cortez captured and killed Choluteca's leaders, unleashing with this act the slaughter of 6,000 people in less than 2 hours. According to his letters of relationship, Cortez affirms that he made this decision as a preemptive action before a possible ambush by 20,000 Mexican soldiers. However, the account collected by Bernardo de Sahagún contradicts this version since it is a narrative that only unarmed Chotix civilians were killed. So that happens a lot. That always happens, man. The so-called white man feels threatened for his life, so he kills uh, black and brown people. That's just something that they always do. We see that in our community all the time, even today. But this sick bastard killed 6,000 people in less than 2 hours. That is insane. That is insane. Even mass shooters don't even kill that many people. They captured the Chichulan leaders, Telequeche and Telechain, and then ordered the city to be set on fire. The troops started in the palace of Eltsinsin and then on the Chechenko and Yetzikolok in letters to his king. Cortez claimed that in 3 hours' time, his troops, helped by the Telkens, killed 3,000 people and had burned the city. Another witness, Vasquez de Talpa, claimed the death toll was as high as 30,000. However, since the women and children and many men had already fled the city, it is unlikely that so many were killed. Regardless, the massacre of the nobility of Chula Cholula was a notorious chapter in the conquest of America. Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas, beginning the European colonization of the Americas. Contact with the Europeans was deadly, triggering multiple epidemics that killed millions of Native Americans. Europeans enslaved Native Americans and also brought Africans to the Americas to provide slave labor. So these nasty bastards, pasty pale bastards, carry diseases, right? They didn't wash their ass. Why should we listen to people who didn't never wash their ass? The so-called Native Americans had to teach them how to wash their ass because they were so filthy and stinky. And these are people that we inspire to be like, traditions we try to be like. 1493, Spanish settlers enslaved the Taino of Hispaniola, Spain, found found Santo Domingo, the first of many towns on the Caribbean islands Hispaniola, now the location of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Spanish colonists forced the native Taino people, on pain of death, to perform almost all labor on the island. Christopher Columbus, who needs to be demonstrated the wealth of the New World after finding no gold, loads his ship with enslaved Taino people. During the next 4 decades, slavery contributes to the deaths of 7 million Taino. 7 million Taino. Their death count is crazy, man. Everywhere they go, it's death, death, rape, rob, murder, death. By 1535, the Taino culture of Hispaniola is gone. So they damn near wiped out the indigenous tribes on those islands. 7 million Taino. Pope Alexander, right? And we make a point and depute you and your said heirs and successors, lords of them, with full and free power, authority, and jurisdiction of every kind. This is something a so called Christian, right? He said this about the indigenous people, the Taino people, right? The Northern Kingdom. He literally said that they're going to be their slaves, heirs, to be passed down. Laws of Burgos. In 1513, El Requisito, Spain demands subservience. The laws of Burgos are the first legal code regarding Spanish actions in the Americas. They direct Spaniards to read aloud a religious justification and demand for obedience. El Requirimiento, supposedly to give native people a chance to submit before being attacked or enslaved. So just imagine that, man. You're chilling at home and somebody knocks on your door, or I'm sorry, kicks in your door. You don't even know this person's language, and they give you a letter that says you have 48, 48 hours to vacate, or we're going to kill you. You're not even going to know what the hell are you even talking. And they did it all in the name of religion. The Catholics, the Protestants, all of these religions. It says, but for Native people who did do not speak Spanish, the requirement to obey is baffling. The Spanish continue to enslave them and seize their lands and resources. So again, all they do is take, rape, rob, murder. This is something that they always have done. Going back to what the man Esau said in his heart about his brother Jacob, that he would kill him. It said, wherefore, as best we can, we ask and require you that you consider that we have said what we have said to you, and you take the time that shall be necessary to understand and deliberate upon it, and that you acknowledge the church as the ruler and superior of the whole world. So these bastards said, look, you either gonna get down or you're gonna lay down. This is what they did, man. It says, but if you do not do this and maliciously make make delay in it, I certify to you that with the help of God we shall powerfully enter your country and shall make war against you in all ways and manners that we can, and shall subject you to the yoke and obedience of the church and of the highness and of their highness. We shall take you and your wives and your children, and shall make them and shall make slaves of them, and as such shall sell and dispose of them, and their highness may command. And we shall take away your goods, and shall do you all the mischief and damage that we can. But if you do not do this, and maliciously make delay in it, I certify to you that with the help of God we shall powerfully enter into your country and shall make war against you in all ways and manners that we can, and shall subject you to the yoke and obedience of the church and of their highness. We shall take you and your wives and your children, and shall make slaves of them, and as such shall sell and dispose of them as their highness may command. And we shall take away your goods, and shall do you all the mischief and damage that we can. So these people were just set out on destruction, man. Just set out on destruction. Like what is going on here? What did the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American do to you to hate them so much? It's all because of the spiritual aspect of them wanting to kill us from the beginning. They just have a deep hatred for us. Just look on Twitter. Just look on Twitter of a random black man punching a white man that calls him a nigger. I just saw this, right? And you check the comments, you just have a baffling number of white people saying that the black man who punched the white man for calling him a nigger, well, he was a beast. He didn't know how to control his emotions, right? He was just all these names because you white people are just so heinous. And it says, and shall do you all the mischief and damage that we can. As to vessels who do not obey and refuse to receive their Lord and resist and contradict, and we protest that the deaths and losses which shall occur from this are your fault. Oh man, the Edomite is just a devil, man. The so-called white man is the devil the Bible speaks of. They said that if you don't submit to our God, if you don't do what we say, we will kill you, and it's going to be your fault just because you didn't want to give up your land, right? This is something that they constantly do. They do this today. They do this today. And it says, and not that of their highness. It says, and not that of their highness or ours, nor of the cavaliers who come with us. So these bastards, man, they just they just always been violent towards us, man. Just it's just a history, a consistent history of these specific people being violent towards us. Let's take a look at how violent these people has been to us. April 13th, 1873, Pollock, Louisiana, the Colfax murder, massacre. The small black population of Pollock left the town after the massacre of more than 100 blacks. November 1st, 78, Salina, Tennessee. Selena's black population left on November 1st, 78, after being subject to a series of violent actions over the course of several months. 1886, Comanche County, Texas. White residents expelled blacks from County because of alleged crimes committed by black. 1888 through 1908, Paraguay, Arkansas. A number of race riots occurred in Paraguay between 1888 and 1908, resulting in most of the town's 150 black residents leaving. June 20th, 1894, Monette, Missouri. Monette's black population was expelled after the lynching of a black man who killed a white man during a fight. The Monette expulsion was the first of June 20th, 1894, Monette, Missouri. Monette's black population was expelled after the lynching of a black man who killed a white man during a fight. The expulsion was the first of number of violent expulsions in southwestern Missouri between 1894 and 1906. August 18th, 1901, Pierce City, Missouri. 300 black residents were expelled after white residents lynched three black men for allegedly killing a white one. July 9th, 1903, Sour Lake, Texas. A mob of 500 white men opened fire on blacks and chased them out of Sour Lake after a brakeman was shot dead by a black man. July 1917, East St. Louis, Illinois. The East St. Louis massacres of late May and July 1st through 3rd, 1917, were an outbreak of labor and race-related violence by whites that caused the deaths of 40 to 250 black people and about 400,000, over 8 million in 2017 US dollars in property damage. An estimate 6,000 black people were left homeless. But the list goes on, man. You can see it right here for yourself that there's a constant violence against our people, waged by the hands of the white man. This is Obadiah chapter 1, verse 1. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith Yahweh concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise, ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee. The pride of thy heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Yeah, so the pride of these white people, man, you know how proud you have to be to oppress and to kill and to manipulate so-called blacks and Hispanics and tell them that they're wrong because they're in pain and agony from the things that they caused, right? This is something that they are very prideful of, right? They created a system where we have to go to them and then they chastise us and ridicule us for having to go to them for our daily needs. That's the system that you created. You fucking idiot. Thou that dwelleth in the clefts of the rocks. That's very important, right? Because we all know that white people, they are Neanderthals. They are cavemen, right? They're hairy, nasty cavemen. We're gonna prove that, man. Let's take a look at the history of these people. Petra. This is a carved out cave, right? carved out cave monument that they used to dwell in. Petra, right? The Greek word means rock, literally. Petra means rock. And the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwelleth in the clefts of the rock. They dwelt here in Petra, right? The Edomites have dwelt here. It is in southern Jordan, which is in Edom, right? Famous for its rock cut arch- architecture and water conduit system. Petra is called the Rose City because of the color of the sandstones from which it is carved, right? So this is where they used to dwell. The Greek name Petra, rock, probably replaced the biblical name Salah, remains from the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods have been discovered at Petra, and Edomites are known to have occupied the area about 1200 BCE. And look, this is the caves that they dwelt in, man. Look at that. And habitations high. They dwell in the clefts of the rock. This is the so-called white man, man. That's not the only place, man. This is Lipsky Cave Town. This is where they used to dwell as well. Take a look at this. A Lipsky Cave Town Fortress is situated on a rocky massive in 15 kilometer eastward to town Gori on the left bank of the river Michviri. The fortress is mentioned in chronicles from earliest times. Its history begins in the millennium BC. Lipsky was an important religious, political, and cultural center in the Hellenistic and the late Antiquity periods. The town was in the heyday as far as back as the ninth through the 11th centuries. In 13th century, it was ravaged by the Mongols. Living quarters and premise and premises for communal purposes occupy a cliff territory of almost 8 hectares and are connected by footways. The majority of the caves are devoid of any directions. The center assembled a big hall with colored tunnel vaulted ceilings, and the palace complex is the most interesting one architecturally. The natural rock easily lent itself to various kinds of treatment, making it possible to create a complex decorative compositions. The ribbed ceilings with an aperture, a smoke outlet, which also emitted light, was supported by two columns carved from the living rock. The hall had niche logins on three sides. Next to this hall, a three-nave basilica was hewn from the rock in the second half of the 6th century. But yeah, this is the places that they inhabited as well. The Olimsky Cave Town Fortress. Let's take a look at more caves that they dwelt in. The Sacramonte and Guaxtix caves in Granada. It says caves have long provided shelter for people around the globe. In South Spain, the rocky formations first served as a sanctuary from windstorms and predatory animals. Later, they offered protection from religious and racial persecution. Now the structures are home to unique, quiet, proud communities who have eschewed modern life for the solitude, peaceful solitude of the mountains. Right. So this is where also so-called white people dwell today. Even today, the Chilean photographer Tamara Moreno, who has been photographing cave dwellers around the world. That's an interesting job, being the photographer of taking pictures of white people who live in caves. So that is interesting. It says it's the history and the raw relationship between the landscape and its inhabitants that interest her most. I've always been fascinated by the way humans relate to the land and environment and how it impacts their lives, says Moreno. Right? So this is something white people do, man. They dwell in caves. That's prophetic. It's in the Bible. All right, let's go into their gods, man. Their gods. This is their god, right? Quos. Quos, right? The head of a horned goddess from Hervat Quemit, probably Quos' consort wife. Now at the Ezra Museum, right? You can see that it is a depiction of a pointy-nosed woman, as you can see. And again, we call them the devil, right? Especially the white woman. And just look at it; it has horns. Like, they even know that they were devils. It says 3 horns of this figurine identify it as the head of a deity. The lack of a beard suggests a goddess, while traces of paint indicate the face was originally painted red, because they are the so-called white man. As we just proved, man, the the ram skin dyed red because they know who they are. And the hair and the handle were painted black. The facial features and the hair were molded around a hollow object, and the features are slightly asymmetrical. The nose is prominent, and the lips are encased in a small smile, right? Because you know white people don't have no damn lips. That's just facts, man. They don't got no damn lips. The Edomite god was so irrelevant, the Most High didn't even give it a name because they're nobody. They made their god to resemble traits of our God Yahweh. They even named their god Yahweh. Going back to this image here, the Quds god. Unlike the chief god of the Amorites, Milcom, and the Moabites, Chemosh, the Tanakh refrains from explicitly naming the Edomite Quaz. The omission may be explained, according to some scholars, by assuming they were close similarities between Yahweh and Quaz, which would have made rejection of the latter difficult. Other scholars suggest that the tensions between Judean and Edomites during the Second Temple period may lie behind the omission of Quaz in the Bible. This is Obadiah chapter 1, verse 4. It says, "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith Yahweh." So these so-called white people, they love using the eagle as representation of them and their power and their authority. It says, "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith Yahweh." So these white people love using the eagle as representation of their power and their authority throughout the earth, right? This is the Atheos Dios, right? The Atheos Dios was a giant golden eagle, which served as Zeus' personal messenger and animal companion. According to some, it was once a mortal king named Pyrrhus, whose virtuous rule was so celebrated that he was come to be honored like a god. Zeus, in anger, would have smote him with a thunderbolt, but Apollyon intervened and transformed the king into an eagle and set him beside the throne of Zeus. According to others, Zeus adopted the eagle when it first appeared to him before the Titan War as a sign of good omen. As the Republic gave way, the Empire eagles were well regarded throughout Rome as symbols of power and glory. Statues of eagles have been unearthed at burial sites because they were a common funerary emblem. The eagle was considered majestic and transcendent to the point that live birds were often caged on emperors' funeral pyres. Once they broke free and flew skyward, the Romans considered it a manifestation of the deceased emperor's transition to godhood. Ancient Romans esteemed the eagle and adopted it as a symbol of victory. Pliny the Elder wrote extensively on eagles, noting that they possessed excellent eyesight and were skilled parents, right? So you think about an eagle, right? An eagle can see very, very well from high distances, man. And this is what the so-called white man, they have this characteristic as well. They can see their prey, right, from miles and miles away. And that's what they did to us. They saw us miles and miles, thousands of miles away, man, as prey. Symbolically, he claimed eagles were the only creature immune to lightning strikes, underscoring their divinity up to modern terry. Symbolically, he claimed eagles were the only creature immune to lightning strikes, underscoring the divinity. Up to the modernity, eagles are depicted with lightning bolts clutched in their talons. The eagle Puerto Ricans saw on the Spaniard ship was the eagle of Saint John, Spanish Aguila de San Juan, which was a prominent symbol on the royal coat of arms used by the Catholic monarchs. Ferdinand II and Aragon and Isabella of Castile during the times of Christopher Columbus' voyages. This was the official symbol of Spain when Puerto Rico was claimed in 1493. Right, so this is the eagle, right? The eagle is very it's all throughout their history. The so-called white man, they're always using the eagle as their symbol. The Edomite, the bald eagle, has been a national bird of the United States since 1782, a symbol of pride. Remember, the pride of thy heart has deceived thee. Remember that. And the strength that earned it a place on the seal of the United States. William Barton, one of the designers of the seal of the United States, who believed that the bald eagle should be an integral part of the seal, stated that pluribus unum Andrew B. Graham Little, the eagle display is a symbol of supreme power and authority and signifies Congress, and that the olive branch and arrows that it holds in its talent are the powers of peace and war, right? So this is the so-called white man, man. The symbols of peace and war in its talons, man, they always wage in war. There is no peace. There's peace when they finally conquer the entire planet, right? Which they have done. And it's also in prophecy, right? So this is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue that thou shalt not understand, right? So this is what they did to the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American. They came on ships with eagles on their flags, right? And they captured us and they killed us and they mutilated us and they raped and robbed and murdered us and sent us all around, right? The diaspora. This is something that the so-called white man has done historically all throughout the annals of time. And when it says that they set their nest among the stars, remember Apollo 11, man, they set their nest among the stars, right? The diaspora, right? A great diaspora, so-called a great diaspora. Remember, they spoke a language that we didn't even understand when they came and colonized us. All right, it says the Spanish in the Americas with the arrival of the Spaniards in the Americas. Hispanization led to the Spanish language establishing itself as the principal language in the region Although the Spanish conquerors tried to force indigenous people to adapt their language, the indigenous languages also ended up having a large influence on Spanish, right? And that happens, man, because we take certain words and we utilize Spanish in the Americas with the arrival of the Spaniards in Americas. Hispanization led to the Spanish language establishing itself as the principal language in the region. And how did they do that? Through the killing of our people, man. They forced the language of Spanish on our brothers, the Northern Kingdom, right? That's something that they did. If you didn't speak it, you got killed. It says, although the Spanish conquerors tried to force indigenous people to adopt their language, the indigenous languages also ended up having a large influence on Spanish, right? Because that's what something black people always do, right? They take a little bit of their language and another language and they mix it together and making new terms and stuff. That's something that we've always done. The Most High sent us signs, right? And here we have Anuit Seclorum. What is it? Nuevis Oro Seclorum, right? The back of the dollar bill, in God we trust. The eagle with the with the eagle, right? It says, here we have the back of the dollar bill, a pyramid. Why does America embrace this image? Because we were slaves in Egypt and America in spiritual Egypt, right? So they have both of our captivities on the back of this dollar bill, man. This is all of the Most High, though, man. It's all signs for us to look at, right? Because in Deuteronomy 28, what does it say? He's going to send signs upon us, right? Revelation 8, 11 and 8. It says, the dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified, right? Because we make up the body of Christ, right? We're here daily. We get killed by the so-called white man, the Edomite, right? This is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, which is America, right? And what's the symbol of Egypt? The pyramid, right? And the eagle represents the spiritual Roman Empire, whom we was made slaves and subject to the Roman oppression as well. And this is the new Roman Empire, right? America. Let's keep going. All right. Hebrews 12 and 16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright, right? And the so-called white man has always been a sexual deviant.
Interesting isn't really the word I want to use, but I do find it interesting that every time you see one of those white conservative podcasters, or even a black one for that matter, conservative podcasters bringing up black people issues and their criminality, you can never find that same podcaster bringing up white people issues and their criminality. Like, why is it that every time I see one of y'all bringing up, oh, black guys love to shoot each other, the black guys are shooting each other, why are y'all never bringing up the fact that white men like kids too much? See, I think children are the future as well. I just don't think you're supposed to have a future with one. I think y'all misconstrued what the fuck they meant by future. It's a culture problem.
Right? This is not something new. This is very well known. Right? We're going to show you this. They are child lovers. Child lovers. 57% of predators are white in cases of rape or sexual misconduct with a child. This is a federal fact. This is a fact according to the to the numbers. Freaky ass niggas, right? 50 cent. I don't know if you guys can see this, kind of blurry, but 57% of white men, right, are offenders. Offenders, sexual abuse offenders.
The number one offender type is biological fathers, but by far it is being done by middle-aged Caucasian men.
Right, 57.5. That number is crazy. 16.1% were black, 12% Native American, right, and 11 were Hispanic. And you combine all of that together, man. It's it, damn, man. That's still not more than the so-called white man. The white man is a freaky ass tyrant who loves to prey on children. And this is it's nothing new. Again, this is nothing new. They was even being doing it back then. Right? Let's look at it. The pedestry, the ancient Greek, was a socially acknowledged relationship between an older man, the erectes, and the younger male, the eromenos, usually in his teens. Two frescoes with each showing pedestic couples at a symposium. Frescoes from the tomb of the diver. Top is the image of the north wall, bottom image from the south wall. And the image that they were talking about is these, right? The imagery of a little boy and a grown ass man touching and feeling on each other, doing all manners of wickedness, man, laying with each other. This is something the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire had done. Let's keep going. It says boys at center is holding a onyche in his hand and giving a clinks to a person on a couch in his right hand. Let me see. It was a origin of initiation ritual, right? Particularly rites of passage on Crete, which is like I believe it's the Greeks, right? Where it was associated with entrance into military life and the religion of Zeus, right? So in order to get down with the military and their god Zeus, you had to lay with a man, and you had to have sex with a little boy. It has no formal existence in the Hermic epics. Epics. It may have developed in the late 17th century BCE as an aspect of Greek homosocial culture, which was characterized also by athletics and artistic nudity, delayed marriages for aristocrats, symponesia, and the social solution of women. Right, so these freaky bastards has always been predators on children because that's what they like. This is Genesis chapter 27 and 39. This is Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Right? So, the so-called white man rules the world, man. That's the fatness of the earth. They rule the world, right? And they live by the sword. And the sword represents destruction in the Bible, man. Everywhere they go, they destroy things. And the yoke, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have dominion that thou shalt break his yoke off thy neck. And it's talking about the Renaissance era. Psalms 37 and 35. I have seen the wicked in great power and spreading himself like a green bay tree. Right? So who is the wicked? Who is the wicked? The so-called white man is the wicked. That's who that is. And he's seeing this. So he's seeing the wicked spreading themselves like the green bay tree. And how do they do that? Through military power. Malachi 1 and 4. It says, whereas Edom says, we are impoverished, but we will return and build a desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down. So everywhere Edomites try to build up, the Most High always crashes their party. He destroys it. Look at the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire. Uh, all of their empires are falling, and this empire, America, is going to fall. It will fall. It's prophetic. And it says, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation for forever. So the Most High hates these people forever, and they are the border of wickedness. And remember that border of wickedness He's seeing the wicked and great power, and he spread himself like a green bay tree. Like I said, it's military power. Let's see. It says the U.S. military maintains hundreds of installations both inside the United States and overseas, with at least 128 military bases located outside of its national territory as of July 2024. So the so-called white man he has military bases literally everywhere, right? They're not keepers of that home, man. They always stay in their nose in somebody else's business. All right, it says according to the U.S. Army, Camp Humphrey in South Korea is the largest overseas base in terms of area. So the so-called white man has a military base in Korea. The Koreans have nothing. Why do you have a military base in somebody else's land? Americans should have their own military in America, but you have military bases everywhere, all over the place, right? Deploring your democracy, right? It says most of foreign military installations are located in NATO countries, Middle East countries, South Korea, Australia, and Japan, right? Speaking of that, the United Nations, because the United States isn't the only people that have rulership. It's really the entire the Edomites, Esau period in general, right? The United Nations. Let's take a look at the United Nations, and damn near all of these are white, predominantly people. Really, all of them, right? White. The the wicked spreading himself like a green bay tree. The white race runs the entire world collectively, especially the Western powers of America, right? Ezekiel 36:5. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea. Idumea is just another word for Esau or Edomites, right? Which have appointed my land into their possession. So there are Edomites who are in the land of Israel who claim the land for themselves, right? With the joy of their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for prey, right? So there are specific people who, the majority of them, right, are Jewish people. The vast majority of them, like I believe, like 70 something percent of the people that inhabit Israel are Jewish people, and these are the Idumi. Verse 6: Prophesy therefore concerning the land of Israel, right? So this is the land of Israel, and say unto the mountains, and to the hills, to the rivers, and the valleys, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in a fury, because ye have borne the shame of the heathen, right? So these so-called white people, the Idumeans, they're inhabiting the land of Israel. Who inhabits the land of Israel? Let's take a look at this. 73% of Jewish people that live in the land of Israel right now, right? 73% are Jewish people. Let's get into how they actually got this land. Remember, because they got this land, how? With despiteful minds, right? With the joy of their heart. That's how they got that land. Despiteful minds, man. Evil. We're gonna go right into it. The no draft Declaration of Independence existed until April 1948. Using the American Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution as a philosophical framework, a small group of attorneys and politicians pieced together Israel's Declaration of Independence. Other important political decisions pertaining to Jewish statehood were left until the last minute. The location of the state's capital, its final name, and how to bring together several Jewish military organizations under one command. Military operations, particularly those around the Jewish settlement at Karf Etzon, south of Jerusalem, diverted attention from final decisions about these matters, also pressing on David Ben Gurion, the head of the Jewish Agency and future Prime Minister of Israel, was the request by President Truman's White House for a formal written request for recognition. So the United States just basically helped Israel or the Jewish people recognize Israel as its own country, as its own state. All right. On Friday, May 14th, after some debate, the National Council established to oversee the political needs of the Jewish community in Palestine voted to accept the final text of the declaration. That afternoon at 4 p.m., David Ben Gurion, head of the National Council, read the declaration of the Tel Aviv Museum. Without electricity in Jerusalem, few there heard Ben Gurion's words or the singing and playing of Hativika, Israel's national anthem. That morning, Ben Gurion, uncertain about the work the war coming with Arab states, had his sanctuary secure safety deposit box at a local bank so that the declaration could be immediately placed there for safekeeping, right? So, because they knew that the so-called Palestinians, they were going to have an issue with them, the so-called Jewish man claiming that land for their own when the Palestinians already dwelt there. Let's get a little bit more into it. The declaration was a synopsis of Jewish history to 1948 and a statement of Israel's intent toward its inhabitants, neighbors, and the international community. It was divided into four parts: a biblical, historical, and international legal case of the existence of the Jewish state in the land of Israel. So these bastards, man, they supposedly use biblical and historical facts to say that the land of Israel was theirs. But again, going back to Ezekiel 36, that these people would take the land of Israel, the Idumeans, with joyful hearts and despiteful minds. It says the self-evident right of the Jewish people to claim statehood, the actual declaration of the statehood, and four, statements about how the state would operate, including an enumeration of citizen rights in keeping with the UN resolution that provided international legitimacy for Jewish and Arab states in Palestine. The requirement to have a constitution was stated. Israel's objective to institute a constitution was postponed indefinitely in June 1950. So the so-called white man, right, the Idumean, the Jewish man, they took the land of Israel and claimed it as their own. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. It says, I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan, right? So the so-called Edomite, right? I'm sorry, so-called Jewish man, the Idumean, the Edomite, right? They are the only one that claim that they're the Jews. They're lying, blatantly lying. Let's take a look at what Christ said. And it says in Luke 21 and 24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captives into all nations. Talking about the Israelites, right? 70 AD, the diaspora. We were led away into all nations, right? This is what happened to the Black, Hispanic, and Native American. And it says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. They're going to be led away into all nations. This happened to the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American. Right? And this did not happen to the so-called Jewish man. You won't find that where the Jewish men were led away captives to all nations under heaven, right? And it says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled, right? And that means that the so-called Jewish man will be inhabiting the land of Israel until their time to get kicked out of that land is fulfilled, until Yahweh returns back. This is Ezekiel chapter 7, verse 24. Wherefore I will bring the worst of the heathen. This is the worst heathen, right? The so-called Edomite, right? And it says, and they shall possess their houses, right? And this is talking about the land of Israel. They're going to be possessing our places, right? They're going to be possessing our houses. I will also make the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled, right? And it's talking about our temple. So let's take a look at how our temple was defiled. This is the so-called white man sacrificing pigs on our altar, man. Uh, right, let's read this. Attempting to stamp out the worship of Jehovah, Antiochus built an altar over the great altar of Yahweh and sacrificed upon this a pig to the Olympian Zeus, Jupiter, an expression like that of Daniel. Disgusting thing causing desolation, appearing in the Apocrypha of First Maccabees 1:57. This is Second Maccabees 10:5. Now upon the same day that the strangers profaned the temple, on the very same day it was cleansed again, even the 25th day of the same month, which is Kaluz. Second Maccabees 10:15. It says, and wherewithal the Idumeans have gotten into their hands the most commodious holds, kept the Jews occupied, and received those things that were banished from Jerusalem. They went about to nourish war. So again, the Idumeans are the ones who defile the temples, and who are the Idumeans? The Edomites, right? And as you can see, pottery doesn't lie. These are so-called white men. This is First Maccabees 1:1, and it happened after that Alexander the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greek. Now this is Philip II, born 382 BCE, right? And again, archaeology doesn't lie. Look at the coinage, so-called white man. This is Second Maccabees 12:32, and it says, and after the feast they called Pentecost, they went forth against Gorgias, the governor of Idumea, and it says Gorgias, a frequent name among the Oriental Greeks, one of the generals of Antiochus Epiphanes, was chosen by Lysias, the general and sinister of Antiochus Epiphanes, and at the time in the scale command of the province of the Euphrates to the sea, to undertake the expedition in company with Ptolemy, the son of Georgius, a frequent name among the Oriental Greeks, one of the generals of Antiochus Epiphanes, was chosen by the Lysias, the general and the sinisters of Antiochus Epiphanes, and at this time in scale commanded the province from the Euphrates to the sea to undertake the expedition in company with Ptolemy, the son of Dorimanon, and with Nicanor against Judea, BC 166. All right, this is Genesis 36:15. These were dukes of the son of Esau, the son of Eliphaz, the firstborn of Esau, Duke Timan, Duke Omar, Duke Sipho, Duke Kenaz, right? The Argi dynasty, right? Also known as the Timonid dynasty. Right, in comparison, Timan and the Timonite dynasty are the same people, right? Of ancient Macedonian royal house, Greek province. The Argi dynasty. All right, let's skip down to right here. Macedonian power extended eastward beyond Axus River to dominate the neighboring Thracian tribes. Right, and you look at that, the Thracians, They were so-called white people as well. The ancient Macedonians were first referred to as Timonids due to the mythological descendant of Timon claimed and fabricated lineage by Alexander. Later, however, the Macedonians, or the line of kings, were called Ardeans. How and did how did this happen and why? Again, again, pottery archaeology doesn't lie. You see this so-called white man, and this happened because the Timonids referred to their origin going back to a person, the ancestor Timonos, while Adrodes referred to their origin going back to a place, the city their ancestors came from, Argos. This is Lamentations 4 and 21. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwelleth in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass into thee. Thou shalt be drunken and shalt make thyself naked. This is Lamentations 4 and 22. The punishment of thy iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thy iniquity, O daughter of Edom. He will discover thy sins. Right? So the Edomites, right, will be in rulership, and the Israelites, this will be their last captivity under the rule of the Edomites. Our last captivity has to be the Edomite age. This is Ezekiel chapter 35 and 2. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. Right? Verse 5. Because thou hast had perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Saith, thou hast hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Thou hast hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut off from it him that passeth out, and him that returneth. And I will fill his mountains with the slain men. In thy hills and in thy valleys, and in thy rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword. I will make thee perpetual desolations, and thy cities shall not return. And ye shall know that I am Yahweh. And thou shalt know that I am Yahweh, and I have heard all thy blasphemies which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate, they are given us to consume. Thus with your mouth ye have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me, and I have heard them. Right? So they literally said that they'll consume us, or take our land, the land of Israel. And who now rules Israel? The so-called white man. This is Second Ezra 6 and 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that followeth. The last ruling world powers would be the Edomites. At the time that Christ returns, this little horn, which is America, will be ruling, and that horn is America, which is ruled by the so-called white man.